Gaurav Chakravorty,
Yeah,
Senior Manager of Machine Learning at Discord. Welcome to the Data Exchange Podcast.
thanks for having me.
So, we've known each other online for a while, and we share this common background of quantitative finance.
Yeah,
And we'll go over your background actually towards the end of the podcast. But uh, since you're here and you've just started the Discord, let's talk a little bit first about Discord. First of all, Gaurav, for people who are not familiar with Discord or don't use it, so what is Discord at a high level?
very good point. So Discord is a platform where you can message uh, your friends or connect in communities with people who have similar interests. And among other things, it has a gaming background. I think it started with people sort of both video and audio streaming while they're playing games. And last couple of years, it has branched out to non-gaming use cases. I think now more than 70% of our users are using it beyond gaming.
So where does Discord sit in the category of things that people use? So people use things like Slack for work. They use Signal or WhatsApp or WeChat for messaging or iMessage. And then there's Twitch for live streaming.
Yeah.
So where does Discord sit in this universe?
Um, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm relatively new here, 3 4 months, but my understanding is it has overlap with kind of all the names that you mentioned. It has a lot of similarities with Slack. However, Slack focuses on the enterprise use case, and Discord is focusing on the individuals or like the consumer use case. And I think one aspect you didn't mention, I think probably is the biggest use case going forward, are communities. So like Facebook groups, a little bit of Reddit, or other online places where you find belonging. Our mission actually is to help people find belonging in their lives, both online and translating it to offline lives.
All right. So with this background in mind, so what are some potential applications of machine learning in Discord? So
Yeah.
let's go first with to the best of your knowledge, what are some current applications of ML, and what would you like to see in 2022? Yeah.
Current applications is going to be easier to say. It's basically we like Discord is an amazing product, amazing engineering product, but we've reached the heights of 150 plus million users largely without using machine learning. And honestly, coming from an ML background, kind of blows my mind how that's possible in today's day and age. They
That
really
tells
have,
you how good the product is, right? So
yeah, and they really like found product market fit in this area. They listened to their customers. They had a lot of user empathy, I would say, but it's very hard to get here. And having said that, we understand that we have our stakeholders being the users, the hosts and the creators who are running the communities. And there are things that are not working well. For instance, we want to help users find the communities they're looking for, like connect with people they're looking for. It's not easy. We want to help them with search, recommendations are complete, but essentially knowing about themselves in a way that translates to the discovery process. We want to help users catch up with Discord. A big complaint we hear is it's just so hard to catch up with all the content in Discord, and particularly on if you look at some low screen real estate services like mobile, I think we can do a much better job there. Lastly, I would point out the host angle. Like if I have a small Discord server, machine learning Discord server, as I'm trying to grow it, it's a lot of work. And one is helping you the hosts with apps or bots or apps, but also helping them like grow the communities, helping surface new users, kind of like as if you're a host of a party. When somebody new comes and you want to welcome them, uplift their voices, having that, translating that to an online presence. These are some areas that we are thinking of.
So is Discord by nature decentralized, or can I start a Discord server using the Discord cloud? So in other words, I guess in a recent episode of this podcast, I had a director of engineering at Shopify, right? So think of Shopify as like setting up e-commerce sites for a bunch of different companies and individuals, right? So is Discord somewhat like a Shopify in that I can set up a community using Discord tools, except that I am expected to do it on my server in a decentralized way?
Very good question. Mostly yes, but with a little bit of a caveat at the end. So when I hear a question, Discord is by nature decentralized. You can create a server today, and you have a number of followers, Ben, and I think I recommend you to do that. You'll have a great experience. I did that for my blog, and yes, it helps people connect over community and shared interest. However, there is the second aspect. Discord also has a relationship with the user. Shopify currently is probably not directly having a relationship with the user. It's having a relationship with their merchants, and they have a relationship with the user. But Discord also has a relationship with the user. We are also trying to, users and hosts are both our stakeholders.
So if I'm using Discord, if I'm joining your Discord group and Discord server, I know that I'm using Discord. So my relationship is not just with you, but also with Discord.
Exactly. Imagine you are in, let's say, about 10 Discord servers on interests you have. Maybe you're in 3 Discord servers based on your personal relationships or your friends from college, etc. The whole ecosystem together is like a portfolio, to borrow the finance speak, a portfolio of relationships that complement each other. And when you log into Discord, you want a holistic experience. So we are working on that as well.
So we have a lot of listeners in the ML space, data science and machine learning, and of course, data engineering space. We're early on in 2022. That's about the time of the year when people are evaluating new job opportunities. So one of the reasons I have you on is you're trying to build a big team in ML within Discord. So of all the opportunities out there, why should I even consider Discord, right? So
thanks for the sort of humbling question. While we are starting something, this is a great time to be working in ML field in general. But yeah, shameless plug for Discord. So the team I'm supporting is discovery and notifications. We are currently working on all applications of machine learning, except for anti-abuse. That's being supported by Michelle Banco, my colleague. So at a very high level, we have reached 150 plus million users and billions of messages a day. Without machine learning, we can improve the product like we talked. So if you are somebody who wants to kind of work on greenfield opportunities, where there's a lot of data and there's a lot of headroom of improving the product experience, however, there's a lot of ambiguity. You're not making there isn't a well-trodden path where you're just optimizing a feature. You are starting from scratch. If that's the sort of environment you like, first principles thinking, and being an engineer and ML engineer and user empathy, being holistic, if that's the sort of environment you like, then this is a great place. to elaborate a little bit on the team, is we are trying to hire anchor people in recommendations, search, notifications, autocomplete, app store recommendations, sort of content ranking, grouping of conversations into, like, extracting a conversation from a thread of messages, kind of things that have never been done. Yeah, it's a great place.
So what kinds of projects and tools would someone expect to grow into? So would they sharpen, for example, their deep learning, NLP, reinforcement learning skills? So what for people who are who choose jobs based on kind of the opportunities to grow their skill set, what kinds of technical challenges do you think are somewhat unique to Discord? I mean, there's scale, there's probably real time, right? So
exactly, yeah. So certainly, I would start with scale and real time, and like the need for like being engineer first. You're building large scale ML systems, and from the very start.
So deploy. I mean, you always want to deploy. It's not a prototyping kind of function.
We are very experimental. We have tons of experiments running. So there is a culture of hearing our users' voices. However, yes, the essence of the question is, when you build something, let's say, to help users find the content that they're looking for, it will hit, multiple billions of messages a day that you'll have to work with that. But let me come back to the question that you asked: what sort of skill sets? We are working on some of the state-of-the-art recommendation systems, search, which is, we have the luxury of being semantic first in search, because in 2022, the world is advanced to a stage that with SPAR and other recent advances, we can already say that I'm implementing the state-of-the-art of search and autocomplete at a scale of billions of messages, at a scale of millions of users, personalization at millions of users. Then you talked about NLP. Again, I think not a single messaging platform has worked on extracting conversations from it. Google and likes have worked on extractive summarization from the web, but we are trying to work on personalized extractive summarization of messaging. Never been done. Then there's this dichotomy of quality versus relevance. So one of the more common problems with any platform is poor quality content. And a lot of times that has been approached separately, quality separately and growth separately. We're trying to do that together. These are new things that I think, are very transferable.
So before you joined Discord, actually, you were a manager at Google in the area of recommendation and personalization for podcasts, right? So compare the challenges between podcast recommendations and the sort of recommendation and personalization that you have to crack at Discord.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I'll be honest, Ben, that when I moved from finance, I had, like, the sort of things you do in high frequency trading are very different. Sort of ML you do is very different. I got a chance to start podcast recommendations from scratch in a team that was supported with. We worked very closely with the ML research team, my team. So in there, the challenge was starting small but iterating very quickly, working cross-functionally. However, practically, there was a well-trodden path. YouTube, more than anything else, was the path that we had to follow, and not just in spirit. Like, we had the luxury of looking at their design docs, their launches, what didn't work, etc. So yes, we had 16 launches in a year, and I'm very proud of what the team achieved, reaching about 32 million users from 200,000 in about a year and 4 months. But it was well supported. It was like, there was less ambiguity. In Discord, we are starting machine learning touching the user experience. It's one benefit is that due to the vision of the CTO and some others in the company, for the last year and a half, Discord has been working on an ML framework. So we today have a very awesome framework that you can spin up an ML service in a week, and it will be as scalable as you need. So we are at a very good space to apply machine learning. But exactly like how to solve these user problems is new, and we'll want to solve them in a lean and iterative way.
So are you comfortable talking about the ML framework? So what is it? It's internal to Discord, but I'm assuming it's built a lot on open source components, right?
Yeah. We are a Google Cloud platform, heavy GCP user, and we built a framework on Rust and Python and Apache Beam for the data processing. There's a separate team that makes sure that the data is of high standard, golden data, as saw in a new recent presentation by VP of Personalization at Spotify. Mentioned that think of ML as golden data, shared models, and application-specific models. So we have the data layer. On top of that, we are using.
An ML person is not responsible for building pipelines and making the data golden?
So and there is a golden data layer. On top of that, the ML person will often have to do batch inferences. And to that extent,
or further transformation and further feature engineering, right? So
Right. So we are working with at an orchestration layer, Airflow and Argo workflows, and then in terms of MLOps frameworks, we are starting to experiment with. There's some in-house frameworks, but we're also starting to experiment with TensorFlow Extended (TFX). And on top of that, we're also looking at what I would call libraries, but application-specific libraries like TensorFlow recommendations, TensorFlow recommenders, TF recommenders, TF ranking, hyperparameter tuning to Vertex AI.
Very TensorFlow centric, huh?
We have a lot of PyTorch models as well, but
I mean, I'll put a shameless plug for Ray, since I'm an advisor to Anyscale. Yeah. They have great libraries as well for hyperparameter tuning, reinforcement learning. RLlib for reinforcement learning, hyperparameter tuning, and RayTrain for distributed training.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
So in terms of the type of person you're looking for is more pragmatic. Is a more pragmatic person in terms of let's get an initial model up and running, deploy it, and then we can refine further over time. So not someone, if you're the type of person who wants to explore and refine models and really get into algorithms, this may not be a good fit. Is that an accurate kind of a statement?
The way I would say it is that if you want to go from 99 to 100, then maybe a Google Ads or like a more established framework is better. But we are at we're trying to go from 0 to 10 to 90, something like that. However, I do want to stress the importance of being up to date with the state of the art. For instance, you talked about my podcast experience. That was a great experience. We were a small team in the Google Assistant. We were working with Google RMI, and since we were spending so much time understanding the state of the art, we were immediately able to bring the state of the art to that experience. For instance, We had 16 launches a year, and which by Google standards is normally like 4 to 5 times the norm. We went from a click-through rate of 0.9% to 8.1%
Wow.
in about 16 months or so. The sort of ML engineers I think is a good fit for Discord at this stage are people with user empathy, people who think about their stakeholders first in making the prioritization and the metrics and roadmap, getting your fundamentals right. I don't that much value whether you know every variant of transformer, but it was very important if you know the 2005 RankNet paper for pairwise ranking, the 2008 NLP paper with Jason Weston. Knowing your fundamentals right, because they are much more transferable, generalizable skills.
So this is basically the second place you've worked at where the focus is personalization, recommendation, information extraction. So what? How does that compare, Gaurav, to your experience in quantitative finance?
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you know, but I also came from hedge fund world. My first job outside of academia was in a hedge fund, and for our listeners who listen to this podcast regularly, they've heard me say often that finance is actually hard.
Yeah.
So even once you get something going, then the market is efficient. Usually, it's gone in a short time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and the stakes are, the scoring is
exactly
clear.
Yeah. Actually, that's exactly what I was going to start with. I think in finance, anecdotally, when I joined Tower back in 2005, I had a risk budget of $10,000. If I lose that money, I'm out of a job. If I make money, I get a very high percentage of profits. And that's the sort of and nothing else. I wasn't told what to do, what algorithm, what model, nothing. I was given a computer, $999 Dell computer. So with that level of contact with the product, contact with the results, clear metrics, it unleashes a higher level of learning, creativity, and you're reacting very fast to data. And that's all we are all looking for. Every one of us is looking for, tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong so that I can learn fast. I think some of the problems these large organizations like the Googles of the world, they need to somehow get back to that. Like in some roles, you're just so far from the customer that your learning rate has slowed. I treasure those 15 years in finance. Like you learn, so you get a report card every second, but you learn all the time, and you work in a very collegiate environment in the sense that you're all in it for the same goal, the same P&L. You don't have I want to achieve this for my career growth and someone else has a conflicting. Everybody's in it for the same goal.
So now the difference, of course, in finance is much more mature industry with a long history of risk management and compliance. But then even there, they have headline grabbing disaster stories. And as you know, the machine learning community is starting to kind of come to grips with ML risks, right? So there's that umbrella term, responsible AI, where it's a collection of risks associated with AI, fairness, transparency, security and privacy, safety and reliability, and things like this. But we're still in the early days compared to other much more mature areas, right? So.
Very good point. In finance, for instance, you have to explain a lot to yourself and to the hedge fund principals, so to speak, when an incident happens. I think there's a lot more fidelity of the use of machine learning. There's a lot more requirements that you place on yourself. In some areas here, we are approaching those, but for instance, in recommendations, I remember this effort of fairness in ranking, 2020 and stuff. We really tried to use that. But the sort of ambiguity I see is when you try to use that and your headline metric, your click-through rate falls by a little bit, that, those are hard launches to get through.
Right. So what's the what's the composition of the ML organization inside Discord at this point, in terms of the different kinds of roles and potential initial projects for our listeners who might be interested in joining?
So at a very high level,
so you probably have like data engineers, ML engineers, this kind of thing. But so how do you guys think in terms of roles and staffing?
So in terms of vertical organization, there are two broad areas: applied machine learning for anti-abuse and safety, and applied machine learning for discovery and notification part that I'm supporting. And then supporting both of these is the ML platform effort. Along with this, the ML effort is the golden data, the data engineering, data products, data infrastructure, and separately the data science effort. Now, within discovery and notifications, the problems we are working on are, like I mentioned, recommendations, ranking, semantic search, notifications, app search, content summarization, like trying to extract the multi-tenant knowledge graph of interests, things like that.
These are classic use cases, by the way, for our listeners who want to really grow their skills in areas that are broadly applicable. Because basically every website, every data product, every data application will interface with one of these.
Yeah. You talked about some industry-wide trends earlier, and I want to come back to that a little bit because your comment here was very relevant. You mentioned that these are like you see these applications everywhere, and I think this is a core trend that we'll see. That, like for instance, recommendations or search or sponsored ads or notifications. These are
where does experimentation sit? Because I think this is an area that many people in data science, data and ML kind of somewhat underappreciate. By that I mean we do have a lot of tools for ML, but experimentation, classic A/B kinds of tests tend to be very bespoke and very hard to launch. And very hard to launch and very hard to execute. So I'm noticing now, Gaurav, a new generation of startups that are trying to make this easier, but it still tends to be the province of companies that you work for, like Discord or Google, have good experimentation platforms and things like that. But it's the kind of thing that is fundamental. But given the amount of focus we've put on ML ops and ML infrastructure, it seems kind of lagging in this area, experimentation.
Very good point. I think, like you mentioned, Discord has been very forward with experimentation, and obviously companies like Google, Facebook, etc., are much more mature in their experimentation frameworks. But it is a lot of work to set up, and I think even now at Discord, for instance, setting up an experimentation framework that allows back-end experimentation, particularly with ML models and versions. So there's a model, when you change a model or a different rollout of the same model, preserving that in your experimentation, having sort of global variables in your experimentation framework that can reach every part of the stack. These would unleash a lot of productivity. I think these are probably the things that were great at Google that that allowed them to move fast.
So I'm gonna rattle off a few industry trends, and feel free to weigh in on things that you yourself are following, or you think that you folks will start thinking more about at Discord? So here's a short list. So low code and no code,
Hmm.
reinforcement learning,
Hmm.
responsible AI,
Hmm.
large language models,
Hmm.
multimodal models,
Yeah.
and then there's this trend towards uh, or the need for tools for better model tuning and customization. By that I mean, in many areas like NLP, you have model hubs with thousands of starter models, but
Yeah.
what we need are tools for helping
Yeah.
teams tune these models for their very, very specific applications, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
do any of these resonate with you?
So yeah, definitely like reinforcement learning, the broad effort being try to tie in your model with long-term objectives. I love, again, I love the presentation by Oscar Stahl at Spotify. He mentioned that we're trying to do the same. It's a very composite use, like users face a lot of things trying to tie that together. Multimodal models, absolutely, like an emoji or a sticker or a comment, all of that should be taken into context to understand whether this a safe message in this platform or not. Also, uh, trying to uplift the experiences of users in terms of how easy it is to catch up with content. Multimodality will be important. I want to talk about one other thing that you and I chatted about in an email earlier is sort of privacy preserving ML.
Mhm. Confidential computing. Yeah,
Confidential computing. Very nice post recently, by the way,
yeah, yeah,
with I think Intel Capital.
yeah.
Um, so I think right now people are talking about privacy preserving ML, and we hold it very
So how
important
does
at Discord.
this play into Discord?
Hmm, 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 hmm. So at a very high level, we have two owners of information. There are users who have created content, and they should have a right to they should own the what is derived from that. And then there are servers or communities which have content. And if we want to do anything with that content, we need to preserve the ownership of that derived information with that servers. So let me simplify. Like right now, when we talk about privacy preserving ML, like Facebook ads or something, they are simplifying it as on device machine learning. We'll store your data on your device. When you want to serve ads, we'll just call your device, give me an embedding, and rank our
This is
ads with
like,
that.
yeah, this is what Apple and Google are doing, right? Kind of the
Exactly.
federated learning plus differential privacy, kind of.
That even so, that is the goal, but that's not right now. They're doing something very simple. They're just storing it on device.
Right.
I believe the next frontier will be where the users actually own their data. What do I mean? Let's assume that your data is owned in a way that you lease it to Facebook, Google, etc. apps and say you can use my data to serve me ads, but it's I own it. It's not inside your application, and you don't own it. We are thinking of in Discord. We always we have no motive, no monetization motive apart from helping our users and our servers owners and admins, etc. Right? So we want to work for them. So we want to provide, like, whatever we learn, we want to do it in a way that these agents, the users, the server owners, it's internal to them, to like they own it in our virtual space. They own it. So privacy preserving ML with multiple stakeholders.
By the way, so as you were talking there, I guess my understanding is a bit blurry. So there's a bunch of Discord servers.
Yeah,
You folks are building ML.
yeah.
So then the ML is generic, or is it specific to my Discord server?
Very good question. Exactly, and these are the questions we want our, us to be internally, but also our community to ask. So, for instance, let's say you have a server,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a
Like
lot of
you have a server, I have a server.
Yeah,
What's the search ranking recommendation on those two servers?
exactly. So let's say we extract some interests or embeddings of content in your servers, and we might use it to find other people who are a good fit for your server, to introduce your server to them. But your server owns the information that has been extracted from it. So we want to preserve that. So it's a little bit of multi-tenant. Think of, like you gave an analogy of Slack earlier.
So
I think
this
it'll be
is
easy.
not, just to clarify, this is not a regulation. This is just Discord's initiative to do it this way. So in other words, there's no regulatory body that tells you that my embeddings and my models have to be mine.
I won't. I want to say yes to that. There's no regular word, but again, it's not my area of expertise, so I'm not legal. So,
but in
broadly,
any case, this is what you're doing.
this is what we want to. This is what we want to aspire to do. Yes.
Yeah.
And the benefit is, since we are starting today in late 2021, 2022, the knowledge of the world has advanced to a stage that we can be privacy preserving first in the way we set up our ML pipelines.
So where does that? So let's say I have a Discord server. You help me with my search rankings, which means you help me with a model for my search rankings. So where does that model live?
Very good point. So in context of a server, everything is in the cloud. Right. And so it'll still live in the cloud, but in a data store that is keyed by your server ID, and no other server will have access to it, things like that. However, I think, again, it takes work, but in future, in the context of the user, we want to be on device and give users controls that they can choose to provide this to certain servers or things like that.
So the aspiration in federated learning is kind of like if I map it into the Discord world, you have a server, I have a server. Somehow we help each other develop a better model instead of us having only models based on our information. We help each other develop a better model, but in a way that doesn't leak any information to either party, right? So is that
very good point? Yeah,
this is the aspiration.
Yeah.
I see. So in many ways, then it sounds like Discord will be a great place to test out a lot of these confidential computing ideas and tools moving forward, right?
Absolutely. Again, the principles we want to have are: we work for our users, we work for our servers, and we have no other motivations apart from that. We want to do it in a way that they own and they own their data. The benefit that comes from the data, they control who accrues that benefit.
So what about in the area of large language models? But Discord is probably going to be one of these places as well, where a lot of potential applications, real world applications of large language models will happen. Maybe Discord itself won't be at the frontier of building these large language models, but they will be at the frontier of finding appropriate use cases for them.
Absolutely. I think large language models have learned a lot of knowledge today. I think there are very nice papers which show that when you're processing text, if you directly try to learn embeddings from it, then you'll need to give access to a knowledge module. But going through a large language model is almost like you're tapping into the knowledge of Wikipedia when you're creating those embeddings. We definitely want to. We are already using large language models in some of the categorization and recommendations work. We're going to use a lot more. We also are very graph neural networks first. So we, taking the spirit of your question.
I have a post which should be out by the time this podcast comes out. But yeah, we have a great post on graph intelligence. Yeah.
Very nice. We love graph neural networks. We think that's the right abstraction,
But
particularly in this multi-tenant world.
yeah, by the way, you are not alone. It seems like people who work in recommenders and areas like this have come to the realization that graph neural networks are the way to go.
Exactly. And there's some of the
I mean,
complexities.
these are real companies, right? So Pinterest, Google, Facebook. I mean,
Yeah. Some of the complexities of using graph neural networks in recommendation systems is around the training of it. Like, how do you bring in that much memory into your batch, and like for your inference? Because there are the epochs are not.
and by the way, to be clear, just so that our
Yeah,
audience understand, so GNNs are really exploding in the research community in terms of, if you look at conference papers at the top ML conferences, and also, as I said, that there are really these headline grabbing use cases from mainly these bleeding edge tech companies. But to be clear to our listeners, they're still somewhat aimed at skilled neural network practitioners, because the libraries tend to be still a bit low level, I think. Is that fair? I mean, there's no easy to use libraries at this point, I would say.
I think that is changing.
Yeah.
Largely, I would agree with PyTorch, BigGraph, and TensorFloor's JRAF. I don't know
Yeah.
how to pronounce it, but these libraries.
But
They
it
are
still requires probably,
exactly.
a little more sophisticated deep learning team.
For instance, these are flat. They take in a graph and compute the embeddings. But in real life recommendation systems, there is time. Like yesterday, something's happened, and you want to learn from just yesterday's events. You want to incrementally update your graph neural network. Michael Bronstein at Twitter had a very nice paper on temporal graph neural networks. If you want to use that in your recommendations, and I absolutely recommend that as a good model, that you have to start from scratch. So there is no, library
Right.
to
Right.
use that. Yeah.
So how far along is Discord in the graph neural network area?
We actually started GNN first in our first kind of models. Discord, if you look, is a graph. So it made sense that when we started in 2021, we first made a GNN model.
But Discord is a company that, if you really want to get into GNNs, is a great place to be.
Absolutely. Actually, we have the benefit of starting at a time when these things are happening. They're showing the best results, and we have the right. We are a very lean team, so we have the motivation of being of trying to start with the right methodology for the problem.
So, what are some perks about working with Discord? So, by perks, I mean, can I work remote? Can I work on open source? Can I speak at conferences? And so on and so forth. So,
yeah.
So
absolutely. So in the ML team, we are remote first. A lot of them are West Coast, but few people are East Coast as well. So definitely remote first. Speaking at conferences, we want to do more of that. We need to do more work to sort of justify that, but we have a very knowledge sharing culture. I'll take a different example. We are one of the first to use Rust. Not an ML team, Discord as a whole. We first use Rust at this scale, and we have contributed to the community. We've sort of we have not shied away from using the right language for our use case.
But does Discord open source its ML tools?
We again, we are just starting, but we absolutely want to open source things that are used outside.
So there's so I guess I forgot the fourth thing, which is basically remote, open source. Can I speak at conferences? Can I publish blog posts or papers. People like to share with their peers, right? So what
Yeah.
they're working on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. We are, um, you know me, I love sharing what I've learned. I think one of the benefits of we have a Discord is a very small team, just 170 engineers, by the way, and we are learning very fast. And we have come here, we have learned fast due to the knowledge the community has shared with us. We want to preserve the same. We'll be sharing blog posts of our successes, our failures, our what we have learned in our space. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And in closing, I guess, so two takeaways, a few takeaways from this conversation. One, Discord uh, is obviously a massive company today in terms of number of users. Very early on in ML, so a great place to really make an impact and shape ML in a company that's really growing fast. And then it sounds like it can also be a place where you can really learn a lot of new things. By learn, I mean learn to use it in real world
Yeah.
applications. So these include graph neural networks, confidential computing, potentially reinforcement learning.
Yeah.
And then finally the perks that we just talked about. So, and with that,
Yeah.
thank you, Gaurav.
Thanks for having me. This was a pleasure.